Hello everybody, Mannix here. First of all, let me just say thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the review. If you'd like to see more knife reviews, locking mechanism videos, knife comparison, EDC gear type videos, etc., feel free to subscribe. Check out my knife review playlist if you want to get right to the point. Now, let's get on to the review. This is going to be on one of my favorite using knives ever, the Byrd Cara Cara. This one happens to be the lightweight Wharncliffe version. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, lightweight is referring to the FRN handle as opposed to the G10 handle that the regular Cara Cara has. And then the Wharncliffe refers to this Wharncliffe style blade instead of the typical, I'm going to call this a drop point leaf shape. It's not a leaf shape, I don't think. Drop point blade, whatever you want to call that. I didn't really research the name of it, but essentially it's the same knife, only we have FRN handle scale instead of G10, and then this one also is available in this exact blade shape, material size, exact same, I promise you, the exact same blade is available on this knife I am reviewing right here today. This is just the one I happen to get out of my own curiosity. So this knife is affordable, it's lightweight, it's long, has a decent lockup, it's comfortable, it's extremely versatile. This knife defines versatility. I'll just tell you right off the bat, I have nothing bad to say about this knife. I like everything about it. I can't think of a single thing. I'm like, well, they should have changed this. Everything about it's just stellar. It's great. It's not a very exciting knife, and there's nothing really like special or crazy about it or anything, but it's a fantastic user blade. But let's get the specs out of the way first, as I always do. Retails at $50.50 as of June 2022. You can get these all day long for $35.35 at the lowest. I've seen them just a little above $35 in the aftermarket. 8CR13 MOV blade steel, satin finish, full flat ground. This happens to be the Wharncliffe blade again instead of the typical drop point. Again, FRN handle scales, which is fiberglass reinforced nylon. Flush-mounted, skeletonized stainless steel liners. We have an FRN backspacer right here. Lock back. We have this indentation here. I forget the name of it offhand, but it's essentially just a grind mark. Probably used a wheel grind or something right there just to grind that off, and it makes it a little bit more comfortable to use. It works very well, actually, and I think the intended purpose is that it makes it more difficult to accidentally disengage. It's kind of like a safety mechanism. I've never really seen that as a problem, but it's nice that it's there. That's cool. I like it. Thumb hole for deployment. It's shaped kind of like a bird's eye, I suppose. Kind of reminds me of a comet or something. But all the Byrd knives are going to have that. If you're not familiar, Byrd is Spyderco's subsidiary company or subsidiary line of cheaper knives. It's kind of like when Benchmade used to have their red class knives, which are their cheaper stuff. Spyderco still has their Byrd knives, which is cool. Weighs 3.2 ounces. Handle length is 4.83 inches. The blade length is 3.83 inches. The actual cutting edge, however, is 3.31 inches, as you can see right there. Overall length, 8.6. That's weird. I'm not editing this out. So apparently those are the specs I wrote down from the website. I would imagine it would actually be 8.66 inches, 3.83 plus 4.83. Whatever. That's what the specs say. Let's say 8.66 inches. Might be a typo. I don't know. You'll notice the ricasso right here is jimped. We'll get into that in just a minute here. Nice spinous jimping right there. Lots of jimping everywhere if you're into that. Tip up carry is the default. I believe it comes in the box. However, you can swap it to tip down, and it's swappable to the left side. Tip up, down, left, and right hand carry friendly. This pocket clip will do it all. Great pocket clip, by the way. No complaints there. I like the texturing right here. It's kind of like the volcano grip on the Spyderco Endura, which this knife essentially is the cheap version of the Wharncliffe Endura. Same exact materials. The main difference, or really the only big difference, is the blade steel. The Enduras have VG10 for their blade steel, which is a much higher quality blade steel. It's a great steel all around. 8CR13 MOV is considerably worse in performance, sure, but it sharpens a lot faster at least, and it's a lot cheaper, so that's why it's on this. But back to this, I think they call it a feather pattern. I can't remember, but essentially it's a bunch of ovals, as you can see, but it is bidirectional. All the ones on the left on the camera right here are facing to the right, and then you'll see the ones on the right are facing to the left. They're all facing this peanut-shaped flattened portion of the handle that says Byrd Cara Cara 2, which is where the pocket clip will rest on, regardless of what position you put it in, which is also cool. Yes, the grip works very well, actually. It's grippy. Nice grippy texture. for the size of the scales anyway. Not quite as grippy as the Volcano grip. The Volcano grip is squared. It's a bunch of more square shapes, and they also have indentations in each square, so it works even better. But it's still good. It's still grippy enough. Don't really care that much. I prefer the Volcano grip, but it is what it is. And yes, having this flattened portion right here makes it even more nice on your pocket because that's where it's going to be pinching down. So although everything else is textured, it is not textured where the pocket clip will be pinching on. So it will be less abrasive on your pocket. So that's great. Excellent. The Enduras do that as well. Minute detail here, but I love it. I love the little hole in the pocket clip right here that accommodates the lanyard hole. And if you were to swap it to tip down, it would accommodate the pivot screw. So that is pretty sweet. It's a nice little proprietary detail right there. It's a great pocket clip. I love this sort of hourglass shape it has. It's not too flared out, but it's not too subdued either. It works every single time. Clipping it in and out of your pocket is a dream. It's pretty obtrusive. You will see quite a bit poking out of your pocket there, but it makes it very easy to extract. I prefer the circle thumb holes instead of the bird eye, but the bird eye works just fine, even though I kind of failed on that deployment right there. There we go. The thinner portion right here kind of catches on your thumb a little bit better, I feel like. Although technically it's less comfortable. You know, it's really not a big deal at all. Flicks out every single time. Fast. Good lockup. Not great. There is just a hair of... Well, I'm going to say it's basically rock solid, but I really torque it. I can feel a little something moving. However, lockbacks inherently have to have just a little bit, just a little bit of vertical play in order for them to function properly. I'm talking minute, like almost not even noticeable. Basically no side to side here. It's got a very adequate, strong lockup. The handle shape right here mimics the Endura, but it's a little bit different the way they have the choils split up. I don't have an Endura on me, so I can't compare it directly, but they're just in slightly different position. It's comfortable. You can scooch down here if you want maximum reach. Decent amount of reach there. It's almost a 9-inch knife, so it's relatively long. It's actually a larger, medium-large knife, I would say, even though it's on the slimmer side. It carries like a dream. Super lightweight, again, 3.2 ounces. Super lightweight, but also strong enough. We got those liners in there that are skeletonized. It'll help with the torsional rigidity of it. In case you're doing some prying or twisting it around after digging into something, you won't completely ruin the pivot and ruin it. That's what those liners are in there for. And they're thin. Again, flush-mounted, skeletonized, so not the end of the world. I just noticed there's something in there. What is that? Oh, a piece of cardboard. Having a flashlight on your camera helps for that. But yeah, I've been using this decent amount at work. Yeah, comfortable down here. You can scooch up to this sort of like mid-tier portion of the knife, I would say. Using this in between of the two choils right here as your guard. And then you can use this as a thumb ramp. Or use the thumb ramp on the blade as a thumb ramp. Jimping is very nice and functional right there, nice and sharp. Got jimping on the efferent handle down here along the spine, which also is functional enough. And then, of course, you can scooch up right here into that choil, which is accommodated by the handle as well. And it's jimped there. You can lock your index finger in there. You can lock your thumb into the spine of the blade, the thumb ramp as well. You're really, really locked in for just some precision work, shaving, if you're doing anything like that. Typically, the grip I get into this, so I think they call this a pinch grip, where you grab the bolster area, and I place my index finger right here, and that's usually when I make my cut. But sometimes I'll be down here. I do this motion a lot for opening packages and boxes and such, which I think the Wharncliffe is great for. Honestly, I'm actually really starting to fancy Wharncliffe blades. I like the flush blade. It makes it very easy to resharpen. But as far as defense goes, some people swear by the Wharncliffe. Some people claim they're better than, a typical blade that would have a belly on it. It's a minute difference, but essentially because if you were to slash, let's say, in this motion, as you can see, again, very minute, but the flush edge is actually going to dig deeper into whatever material you are cutting into, versus a belly will technically be facing away from it. There's advantages to that. I'm not going to get too in-depth for this video, but basically, for defense, Wharncliffes are very adequate. They're actually good blade styles for defense. They're good utility blades because the tip, you don't have to rotate the whole knife as much to get the tip to make the slicing motion. Again, going back to a blade with a belly on it, it's more up there, so I have to reach all the way up here, almost come down at a 90-degree angle, essentially. Versus the Wharncliffe, I don't have to rotate it as much. So that's another minute advantage Wharncliffes have. Really starting to like these blades a lot. Now, of course, people will argue, well, with a belly, you don't have to use the tip. You can just use the belly to slice things. That's true, too. But I find the tip a lot more effective for that. So Warren clips, again, minute differences, but overall they're very, very functional blade styles. They have slight advantages, slight disadvantages. They're great. I like them overall. I also just think it looks cooler how the knife's more wide if you went with that blade style. However, you can consider that a disadvantage. It is going to take up more space in the pocket, although shouldn't really be a big deal because it's only taking up space this way, not this way in your pocket where your hand would go in if you had to reach to get something else. But some people do consider that. Let's talk about the blade steel real quick. I've talked about this many, many times on this channel, but it's a soft steel, the 8CR13 MOV. It's used on the Spyderco Tenacious line. It's used on a lot of knives across the board, a lot of Sierra KTs, a lot of Kershaws. Lots of knife companies use it, cold steel. It's cheap, it's easy to work with. I think it has easy machinability. It'll rust on you relatively easily, but if you take care of your blade, it shouldn't. It will dull on you relatively easily, but if you keep it stropped, it shouldn't too bad. If you're using your knives day in and day out, cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting, yeah, eventually you'll notice it soften on you. Yeah, it'll dull on you, but if you just open a package once in a while, it's really not a big deal. I don't really care for blade steels that much because I don't use my knives that much. I carry them all the time. I always got knives on me. I just don't cut and cut and cut stuff all day long. Occasionally I have to open up a box or a package or something simple, but then I put it away and strop it for the end of the day, and boom, it's back to normal. It's very rare I'll actually have to re-sharpen a blade, especially considering I have a huge collection of knives and I rotate through them. Now, if you're just talking one knife, if you're only going to have one knife, nothing else, that's your utility knife, that's your work knife, that's your defense knife, that's your everything blade, yeah, you might want something a little better than the 8CR13 MOV. But in every single other case, it's just fine. And of course, you keep the costs down. Again, this is less than a $36 knife across the board. Sub $40 knife right here. Enduras across the board, you're going to be looking at closer to $90, $95, if not even $100 or more. So you're spending about a third, less than half the price of an Endura. You're getting the same locking mechanism, pretty much the same handle. It'll feel just about the same in every single way. Pocket clip's the same, length's almost the same. Everything's almost exactly the same. The big difference is going to be the blade steel. And then, of course, they have a circular hole instead of a bird eye hole. Other than that, it's the exact same thing. Again, big difference is going to be the blade. One big advantage, however, that I do like about the Byrds is the second choil right here. The Enduras do not have this. They basically just have a handle that kind of ends right here and you can't choke up on it. This you can choke up on, so little advantage right there as well. Why the Enduras do not have it, I don't know, but there you go. But I love carrying this knife. It's not really a cool knife. It's not a very interesting knife, no, but it's a great user. Again, I have no complaints. Lightweight, long, so it'll do very well for a defensive situation. If you had to do that, we got a lot of traction on here if you're into that. Carries really well. It's versatile, lefty friendly, tip up, tip down. Most of us are going to go with tip up, but some people will like tip down. One advantage is it'll be less obtrusive out of the pocket in the tip down position, as you can see right there. You can see one of the body screws right here is taking up some space. Comfortable. Thumb hole deploys every single time. Thumb hole allows you to deploy it every single time very easily because it's very sharp. Flicks out like a dream, has a good lockup. It's not crazy strong or anything. It's a simple thin lock back, but works just fine. I like lockbacks. I don't know what it is. I think they're technically stronger than liner locks. I've talked about this before as well, but it's more about how the locking mechanism is made, not what style locking mechanism it is. There's plenty of lockbacks out there that are weaker than some liner locks out there. It just depends on who's making it, what it's made of, the tolerances, how formally engineered it is, etc., etc. But I like lockbacks. I think I like that little snap they have. I like how the locking mechanism's not in the way down here. It's really not a big deal. I like all locking mechanisms, but I don't know what it is. Even though you usually have to disengage and close the knife with two hands versus a liner lock or a frame lock where it's boom, done with one hand. I don't know what it is. I still like the lockbacks. I don't know. I'm weird. I like lockback knives. Some people don't like them, and if you say I don't like lockbacks because this, and this, I'll be like, I 100% understand, but I don't care. I still like them anyway. I don't know what it is. I like lockbacks. I like playing with them. Most of the time you have to disengage and close, again, with two hands on a lockback, but because of the thumb hole right here, another one of the advantages is you can close it with one hand. I do this. I just put it on an angle, use my thumb to depress the locking mechanism, and my index finger just moves the blade out of the way, and once the space is freed and the space in the handle is cleared, that's when I close it shut. So I can open and close this with one hand all day long, no problems. You can also rock it forward like that, then close it. Normally I wouldn't recommend to do that, but if you're in the correct position where your thumb lands and your index finger naturally lands on this knife, you're just going to hit that choil on the ricasso of the blade, not the cutting edge. So you'll be just fine with that too. However, I recommend you always close lockback knives with 2 hands if you're a knife noob or something, but as you get used to it, you'll be just fine. So deploys like a dream, closes like a dream, carries like a dream. It's grippy, it's light. It'll be good for pretty much all utility tasks. It's a little bit on the longer side, but that'll make it better for, bigger, heavier duty tasks. We do have the steel liners in there. Not that I really care, but if you're going with such a slim, longer knife, you may want those in there actually to help, again, with the structural integrity of it. It's a good looking blade, It's not beautiful or anything, but I like it. Very affordable. And if it's just a little bit too big for you, but you like everything else about it, you like the price, you don't mind the blade steel, you like the looks of it, you like how it carries, you love the versatility and how lightweight it is, step down to their smaller size. I don't have one yet, but I believe it's the Robin, Byrd Robin, something like that. I'll correct it if I'm wrong, but it's literally the same knife, only it's smaller. It's the Delica size. If you're not familiar with that, that's the Spyderco version of the smaller version of this knife. One thing I will say about it, again, not really a big deal, it's another nitpick, but the thumb ramp, I don't like how it curves almost in an S shape. It's a very, very squeezed down thin S, but it's almost an S shape, and I don't like that. It doesn't naturally fit up with the natural curvature of the tip of your thumb, unlike the Spyderco, where it actually does match up with the tip of your thumb. But it is what it is. It's basically it. I have a lot of fun playing with this knife. It just feels nice. It's so affordable, so cheap, but it's so functional. It's great for the money. It's an all-around good user. You want an Endura, but you don't want to spend the money. You'd rather spend half, if not a little bit less than half, and you want that same feel. You don't mind the dropping down in blade steel. You don't use your knives all that much. This is the knife for you right here. So you have it. That is the Byrd Cara Cara lightweight Wharncliffe. And the price is the same. Everything I've already discussed is exactly the same with the other lightweight Cara Cara with the regular blade shape rather than this Wharncliffe blade shape. I just happen to get it because it's a little different. I'm starting to like Wharncliffes a little more now. So there you have it. Awesome, awesome knife. It's a great user.